means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of God and Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, supremacy with beauty. Unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And Prabhupada, the translator and commentator. I render your attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam. I render your service to pure devotees. All that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And one serves as the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as the irrevocable fact. So we're going to concentrate on text number 10, yeah. But we'll start with 7 and 8. Continuing on with Vidura's journey. That was the theme up until this point. Vidura left the palace, now he's come back. It was 36 years, probably knew that, right? 36 years that Vidura, after he was insulted by Duryodhana, that he traveled on pilgrimage. No, it was before the battle started, but the whole battle took place, and now Yudhishthira's back in the throne. Okay, so 7. Would someone like to read that? And I'll just say my little prayer because I'm going to start talking. Omadinathimirantasya janandana salakaya chaksu militam jena tasmai gurve namaha. Was born in the darkness of ignorance and spiritual master very kindly forced open my eyes. Therefore, I am indebted to Srila Prabhupada, and I beg for service life after life. Okay, text number 7.
After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened.
Okay, so just to focus in, because yesterday was a long time ago, and you had a very nice class yesterday. Thank you. So where is Vidura? Yeah, Yudhishthira. Yeah, now. Okay, and that's who's referred to as the king. The king began to speak to him, Yudhishthira. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure if it's Dhritarashtra's palace or if Yudhishthira has a different palace. It's there. He's there. Okay. Can we go into the purport? I think that's a little long purport. No, it's not so long. Okay.
King Yudhishthira was expert in reception also. Even in the case of his family members, Vidura was well received by all the family members by exchanging of embraces and obeisances. After that, bathing and arrangements for a sumptuous dinner were made, and then he was given sufficient rest.
So the purport there is, they didn't just gang up on him all at once, even though they were very excited to see him. They gave him some space, along with a nice meal, facilities to bathe and refresh and rest, and then they bothered. Okay, go ahead.
After finishing his rest, he was offered a comfortable place to sit, and then the king began to talk about all happenings, both family and otherwise. That is the proper way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy. According to Indian moral codes, even an enemy received at home should be so well received that he should not feel any fearful situation. An enemy is always afraid of his enemy, but this should not be so when he is received at home by his enemy. This means that a person, when received at home, should be treated as a relative. So what to speak of a family member like Vidura, who was a well-wisher for all the members of the family. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaj began to speak in the presence of all the other members. Yudhishthira Maharaj began to speak in the presence of all other members.
So there's an important point there, that even an enemy should be welcomed politely, friendly, and so many ways at home. And that explains, I'm sure you've noted in that when the different personalities, a lot of times when the different personalities describe that they fight during the day, and then they go to the enemy's, they go to the enemy's house, and they're in the night, and they're fed, and they have nice talks, and everything's all put aside all the grievance, and then the next day they start fighting again. Sometimes it's amazing. I agree. Amazing, isn't it? It's an amazing sense of reception, and then so you can learn a lot from that. Okay, any comments on that? Not like the wars you have nowadays. Yeah, that was the whole point. What was the whole Battle of Kurukshetra? What was it? They went off to a nice flat plain away from residential quarters where the people wouldn't be unnecessarily disturbed, and they faced each other and fought. They didn't do all this. Yeah, that's another point too. Champakalataji.
Also, it's an interesting point for us because not to speak of just war, but it's the culture, like the pop culture right now, to like, if you hate somebody, like you hate somebody, or there's just people can even get in a mentality of like, oh, that's my enemy, I never even wanted to see them. But the culture of respect that they had was so beautiful that they can be friends at night. So I think for us in our life, of course, as Vaishnavas, we want to practice humility, tolerance, forgiveness, and not seeing friends or enemies at all, ultimately getting to the place where we see the spirit soul and we love and serve everyone. But even if we, if someone struggles in their consciousness with thinking, oh, I don't like that person, I think we can also take some advice from this of like, well, at least practice still being friendly and nice to them while you work on the internal purification of your heart.
Thank you for that. Wait, yes. Meantime. What is it saying when the guest comes? Yeah. And especially the uninvited guests. They're even more auspicious. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, TT is a specific time. Okay. We'll go on 8, please. Somebody. Bruce. I'm volunteering you. Thank you.
Maharaj Yudhisthira said, "My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with your mother, from all sorts of calamities? You partially, like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson."
Yeah, this is a long purport here. We'll kind of skip through it with your permission, otherwise we won't get to our main verse. But that was Vidura's, say, his profile in the palace before the battlefield of Kurukshetra, before the battle started. After Kunti was widowed at an early age and her young children, when she came back to the palace, she was expecting and hoping for protection, to have her children grow up in a nice atmosphere. But there was an intrigue right from the very, very beginning because of Dhritarashtra's blindness materially, but is also his blindness spiritually. He's spiritually blind also, as Prabhupada would point out many times. And he envied the position of the Pandavas taking over the kingdom, and he wanted, at least because Dhritarashtra was the elder son, he should have actually ruled the kingdom, but because of his blindness, he was disqualified. But he at least wanted his sons to. So Pandu took the reign, and then his sons were the rightful inheritors. But Dhritarashtra just held that desire in his heart, and he wanted his sons to be take over the kingdom, and therefore everything that Duryodhana did, all his nefarious plans, were supported by Dhritarashtra, supported and encouraged by Dhritarashtra. But Vidura's position was he was always watching out. He could very clearly see the difference in the character of the sons of Pandu, the character of the sons of Dhritarashtra headed by Duryodhana. He could clearly see the difference in character, and he did his best and a lot to protect them through the trials and tribulations of living in that palace, among which was when Duryodhana Duryodhana tried to poison Bhima at a picnic one time and then roll him into the river, but so many things. And then, but that especially significant is when the Pandavas were being sent to a supposedly very nice country house in Banavart. I think that was the house of Black. And thanks. And even in front of everybody, Vidura had a way. He had a means to communicate with Yudhisthira, so that he could tell him, watch out, there's intrigue here. Thank you. There's intrigue here. There's a weapon. It's not that all the weapons can be, metal or steel or whatever. There's a weapon that can destroy you, so you need to be alert for this weapon. And he told him in a tribal language or some sort of, different language. So he said it right in front of everybody, but Yudhisthira understood the message that Vidura gave him, to watch out for fire in that house of Banavarta. And then, so they went there, and Kunti, before they went, Kunti said, "What did he say? I didn't understand a word that he said." And Yudhisthira mentioned, watch out, there's going to be intrigue here. So then after they were there for a short time, Vidura had sent a messenger. He had sent a helper. He had sent a tunnel digger, or the person who was going to dig the tunnel, which would be their means of escaping the house when it was set on fire. So they had their whole plan in motion because of the warning of Vidura. So Vidura was always trying to keep a lid on Duryodhana and his brothers, and keep them in place, and always watching out for the Pandavas. So he became well known as partial to the Pandavas. It was well known. So then when he was insulted by Duryodhana, he left his bow on the door. The members of the palace, they actually never expected him to come back. They were always waiting, like you just said. They were always waiting for him to come back. 36 years passed while he was on pilgrimage. Anyway, we'll zoom on to text number 9, please. Somebody.
While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service?
You could read the purport, please.
Vidura went out from the palace to detach himself from household affairs, especially political intrigues. As referred to herein before, he was practically insulted by Duryodhana's calling him a son of a Sudrani, although it was not out of place to talk loosely in the case of one's grandmother. Vidura's mother, although Sudrani, was the grandmother of Duryodhana, and funny talks are sometimes allowed between grandmother and grandchildren, but because their mark was an actual fact, it was unpalatable talk to Vidura, and it was accepted as a direct insult. He therefore decided to quit his paternal house and prepare for the renounced order of life. This preparatory stage is called Vanaprastha. Thank you, ashram, or retired life for traveling and visiting the holy places on the surface of the earth. And the holy places of India, like Vrindavan, Haridwar, Jagannath Puri, and Prayag, there are many great devotees, and there are still free kitchen houses for persons who desire to advance spiritually. Maharaj Yudhisthira was inquisitive to learn whether Vidura maintained himself by the mercy of the free kitchen houses, chatras.
So there's a very interesting point there that if you remember back to the incident where Duryodhana insulted Vidura, and that gave him the impetus to say, okay, I'm out of here. It's a very interesting point that Prabhupada made in the purport, that Duryodhana was influenced by the illusory energy to speak ill words to Vidura. But Vidura took it in a positive sense, and he was influenced by the internal potency of the Lord. He saw this is Krishna's mercy. That's a real art in life. It's easy to read that story, and because it has nothing to do with us, we don't have any emotional involvement in the story. But Vidura was hurt by those cruel words, by those insulting words of Duryodhana. But at the same time, he appreciated the opportunity that those insulting words provided, and it was very clear to him, my influence here is over. I've tried to influence them to a proper path. They're not taking any of the direction. My attempt here is finished. I'm going on. I'm moving on. And so Vidura, although it was the influence of the material energy, from Duryodhana to Vidura, Vidura took it in a positive way. So this is Krishna's opportunity for me to get disentangled from this political intrigue. If I had to try to do it on my own, little by little, it would be like impossible to disentangle myself. But this way, I'm out. A lesson for us to see when trials and tribulations and whatever comes our way, to look for Krishna's hand, and how can I benefit from this situation? Okay, here's our verse for today. We'll go to the Sanskrit for this one. Text 10. Is it? Yeah, okay. Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Smantastena Gadabrita Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gadabrita. Please chant.
Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas
Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas
Tirtha Bhuta Swayam
Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho
Tirti Kurvanti
Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani
Svantastena
Svantastena
Gadabrita
Gadabrita. Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gadabrita. Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Svantastena Gadabrita. Bhavat, your good self. Vidha, like. Bhagavata, devotees. Tirtha, the holy places of pilgrimage. Bhuta, converted into. Swayam, personally. Vibho, oh powerful one. Tirti Kurvanti, make into a holy place of pilgrimage. Tirtani, the holy places. Svantastena, having been situated in the heart. Gadabrita, the personality of Godhead. My Lord, this is Yudhishthira speaking, and he's speaking to Vidura. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places of pilgrimage personified. Holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Let's say it together. My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. Interesting, no? Okay, can we get the purport? How about the front row reading some of the purport? Thanks.
The personality of Godhead is omnipresent by his diverse potencies everywhere, just as the power of electricity is distributed everywhere within space. Similarly, the Lord's omnipresence is perceived and manifested by his unalloyed devotees like Vidura, just as electricity is manifested in an electric bulb.
Interesting, no? This is one way to really appreciate Srila Prabhupada's purports, because he takes a concept, or many concepts, but here in this particular case, the concept, what's the concept that he's trying to explain? Just in those few sentences, what's the concept that he's trying to explain? You could say it again? Omnipresence. Exactly. So omnipresence. So when he's talking about omnipresence, it's obviously a big thing, right? But here's this little example, like electricity is present in the atmosphere. But if there's electricity in the wires and then you plug the electric bulb in, then it lights up. So electricity, microwaves, this, that, everything is present all the time. Cell phone vibes, they're present all the time. But interestingly enough, when a person dials the right number, they get your cell phone number. They get your cell phone and cause it to ring, or your text message, or whatever. So, but if somebody had the ability to perceive those waves, which the invisible waves, they don't have the facility, but they have the facility to perceive them through the instruments that they come through. And that's the point. Krishna is present everywhere for everyone to see and feel and hear and touch and etc., etc. But not everybody can tune into it unless they're, quote unquote, properly programmed, So this Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Vedic literature are giving us the information so that we can program in our consciousness the ability to see Krishna everywhere. What is Krishna's? What are some of the examples that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita of seeing him everywhere? Gopal. Taste of water, ability in man. Yeah. Okay. And that's a very important point. If you see Krishna everywhere and you see Krishna in everyone, then you're always connected to Krishna. It's an art. It's a well-known fact that we have to practice the art of learning to apply it. And that helps us, just like in Vidura's case. Look at Vidura's case, his previous example of that insulting situation with Duryodhana, when Duryodhana insulted him. He saw it as Krishna's mercy. He saw this is Krishna here. Normally, we dwell on the calamity, the disaster, the this or that, or the hurtful words, or whatever and we don't see, and we think, why is this happening to me? I've been a devotee now for 4 years. I've been a devotee for 50 years. Why am I getting sick? Why this, whatever? This is Krishna's. That's one way to see it. And you don't get very far or become very happy seeing things like that. But by seeing the Lord's kind hand and everything directing our lives in every way, then one becomes what? Transcendental to the situation, above the modes of material nature. And then one can actually practice with feeling, seeing Krishna's presence in everyone, even people who mistreat us or harm us or try to seeing Krishna's presence. It's an art. But the example makes the concept much more understandable and much more easy. It helps us apply it better in our lives. Want to continue? Please and thank you. A pure devotee.
A pure devotee like Vidura always feels the presence of the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in the potency of the Lord and the Lord in everything. The holy places all over the earth are meant for purifying the polluted consciousness of the human being by an atmosphere surcharged, that's a nice word, with the presence of the Lord's unalloyed devotees. If anyone visits a holy place, they must search out the pure devotees residing in such holy places, take lessons from them, try to apply such instructions in practical life and thus gradually prepare oneself for the ultimate salvation, going back to Godhead.
Okay, so this is a point that Srila Prabhupada makes in many, many places. The proper way to visit a holy place, the proper attitude that one should cultivate while visiting a holy place. Yes, there's acknowledgement that the holy places in and of themselves have a particular purifying potency. They're surcharged, there's a vortex there, there's energy there, a purifying energy that's there. Yes, that's acknowledged and encouraged for people to go to holy places. But in and of themselves, going to the holy place is not the ultimate goal. Prabhupada's going to explain that now in the next few sentences. Do you want to continue reading? Yeah, please. To go to, I think is where we're at, right? Yeah.
To go to some holy place of pilgrimage does not mean only to take a bath in the Ganges or Yamuna or visit the temples situated in those places. One should also find representatives of Vidura who have no desire of life save and except to serve the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is always with such pure devotees because of their unalloyed service, which is without any tinge of fruitive action or utopian speculation.
Okay, thanks. So, what's the point that Prabhupada's making here? Yes. Learn. And how does one do that? By hearing. Correct. Totally. That to go to the holy place again is recommended. It's purifying. It has a positive effect on the conditioned soul. But to go and only take bath in the Jamuna or Ganges or whatever, or see the place, see the temple, and then go on, that's not the full benefit that one can get. But to go to, and Prabhupada's emphasizing, there's always, oftentimes, actually he'll clarify that too, because there's not always pure devotees at the holy places, different holy places. But that's the main thing, most important thing to do, to go to hear from the devotees, the pure devotees that reside there. Now, he also set the standard of who's worthy to hear from in those few sentences. Can you remember some of the qualities? Yes, Gopal. Yeah, that person has no other desire than to purely serve the personality of Godhead. That's a very key point. And that's what made Vidura particularly potent, powerful, because that's what he had no other desire. He wasn't, unfortunately, in this day and age, in this day and age, there's often people we're motivated by different things. Obviously, we're motivated all the time by different desires, and oftentimes, if those desires, if we don't even have an understanding of what pure motivation is or how to please the Supreme Lord, then people's desire might be to go to a holy place and get some name and fame, and probably money too, by showing people around the holy place, etc., etc., etc. Something for their personal benefit. Now, if we examine our own hearts, there are tinges of that there in our own hearts, for sure. But fortunately, because we've had the opportunity to hear from Srila Prabhupada over and over and over and over again, as he pounds it into our very thick covered heart and consciousness, that personal motivation and personal desire isn't going to lead us to the ultimate goal of life, the desire to please, or even to ultimate happiness, but that desire to please the Supreme Lord, linking up with the Lord through a desire to attempt to please him, that's the desire that we want to cultivate, and that's the desire that makes association with the devotees potent. Any other comments just yet? Yes. Can you remind me your name? Jackson, thank you. Dr. Jackson Prabhu.
So it's kind of like when we go to these holy places, it's a bit of a circus. You have a little bit of everybody. It's like a rodeo. You have exploiters and the wizards and everyone who's trying to sell the water from the river and kind of thing. But then you have the true devotees. And so this sounds like really practical, practical knowledge, especially the deeper we go into Kali Yuga. How have you experienced this in your time? Do you have any personal experiences, small stories?
Well, Srila Prabhupada often encouraged the devotees to go to Vrindavan. He would always say, serve all year round and then go to Vrindavan and Mayapur at least once a year. He would encourage the devotees to go on pilgrimage once a year. When they were there, and when Prabhupada was present on the planet, like say Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and he was giving class in the temple in Vrindavan, he would look around and, it was a smaller movement at the time, so he was familiar with practically everybody, If he saw somebody missing, where is Pradumna? Sorry to pick on Pradumna, but where is Pradumna? Where is Nitai? Whatever. Where is he? Oh, he's out. And I can't remember who it was. It was one devotee, some devotee. He was out visiting the temples while Prabhupada was giving a lecture. Prabhupada didn't appreciate that because there he was. Prabhupada, the founder acharya of our movement, and someone's outside sightseeing. That reminded me of another story. Can you think of a story like that in Prabhupada's own personal example in his own life? Hang in there. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I know. I was giving them a chance, but you're grabbing it. Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was doing a pilgrimage in Vrindavan, and he was giving a talk, and a lot of the disciples went out to go on Parikrama.
The Shai temple.
Yeah, but Prabhupada, who was a Bhayacharan at that time, he stayed and listened to his Guru Maharaj, and later his Guru Maharaj said, "I have marked him. He likes to hear."
Yes. And yes, very totally true, everything you said. And Prabhupada said he thought of, because he had come from Agra, wherever he had come from, only for a day or two to be on that pilgrimage, on that parikrama with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. So he only had a day or two. So he considered whether he should go to that temple of Seshai Vishnu. And he thought, if I go there, what am I going to see? How am I going to see? Because to Srila Prabhupada, seeing wasn't just through the eyes. It wasn't just going to see the form of the deity, but it was to understand the pastime and understand the philosophy. Better I hear from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, because then I'll see things better. I'll see things more in a proper mood, in a proper spirit. So that's a very important point. Okay, let's go on. Yes. Yeah, please.
Emphasizes that point of the importance of hearing. When those who went to take darshan and came back, were pronounced it sannyasi, stuff that before. Asked them a question. How did you like to apply it?
Yeah, good point. I forgot that point. I exercise. Yes, thanks. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I exercise. Interesting. So even one can go and, offer their obeisances at the holy place. That's just like bodily. It's, you know what I mean? Unless you're conscious, like we can just think I can just think for myself, how many times I offer my obeisances and say the word Namo. And I'm not thinking of Prabhupada with gratitude. And I'm not thinking of the words that I'm saying. I'm not thinking in the meaning. So I'm just, getting mouth exercise or bodily exercise. But that's what Krishna consciousness means, that we become conscious of the Lord. Okay, let's go on to the end of this. Who would like to read? Nitai would like to read. Thank you, Nitai.
During the actual service of the Lord, specifically by the process of hearing and chanting, the pure devotees hear from the authorities and chant, sing, and write of the glories of the Lord. Mahamuni Vyasadeva heard from Narada, and then he chanted in writing. Shukadeva Goswami studied from his father, and then he described it to Parikshit. That is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. So by their actions, the pure devotees of the Lord can render any place into a place of pilgrimage, and the holy place are worth the name only on their account. Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place. What to speak of a holy place rendered unholy by the questionable actions of interested persons who try to adopt a professional life at the cost of the reputation of a holy place.
Oh, Srila Prabhupada is so expert at phrasing things, isn't he? That last sentence, it's said in such a polite way. And Prabhupada has very heavy ways he can say things, but that way you have to think, what is he saying? Such pure devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere. Jai Shri Gauri Thai Ki Jai. Happy breakfast to you. That they're able to rectify the atmosphere. So if you remember the story of the descent, or if you're familiar with the story, because we haven't got to it, at least in this first canto, of the descent of the Ganges, when Bhagirath was petitioning the Ganges to descend for the purification of his relatives, blah, blah, blah. I'll skip the story details. The Ganges personified was hesitant to come. Because why? Because if I come, then all the sinful people in the place are going to come and bathe in my waters, leave their sins there, and I'm going to become choked up with sinful reactions. And I kind of would like not to do that. Is that okay? And I don't remember who said, but it must have been anyway. And then Krishna said, no. What we'll do, the arrangement that we'll make so that you won't become choked up with with accumulating all the sinful reactions of all the people, is when those pure devotees come, those real pure devotees come and bathe in your waters, you will be purified by their presence. Interesting, huh? Yes, Nate.
I thought I think it's tequila, the dwarf incarnation.
Vamana is the
Vamana.
dwarf.
Yeah, whatever. I thought he pierced the sky or something.
He did.
And that came down like a river?
There's different phases, different parts of that pastime. He did. He pierced it, and then that water comes down. Some say that's the Govardhan Ocean. Some say, but she didn't come to the planet Earth at that particular time. She went to other planetary systems, and she had to come. Okay. Purifying. So that last sentence. Such devotees are able to rectify the polluted atmosphere of any place, and what to speak of the holy place is rendered unholy by people leaving their accumulated sinful reaction, and by people who do questionable or sinful activities, or they have a selfish motivation to be in a particular holy place to guide pilgrims and but they're at that particular place because that place is famous and a lot of people will come, so therefore there's an opportunity for name, fame, and adoration, which is opposite of what really is the real benefit of going to a holy place. But a point that I would like to make is that here in this last part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada particularly mentioned Vyasadeva hearing Bhagavatam, and then he continued the Bhagavatam by singing the glories of the Bhagavatam by compiling it. And Narada also, he heard from Narada, and then he chanted in writing. Sukadev studied from his father, and then he described it to Parikshit. We also, it's not just the great devotees who have a responsibility to repeat the pure message of the Lord, but we have the responsibility. We have the service to render like that also. And that will make our place that we're living in, especially in a communal atmosphere like this, that will fortify, strengthen the spiritual atmosphere if we participate in repeating what we've heard or read or whatever. It's not just, some other people's responsibility. It's our responsibility. And if we partake in that, then this atmosphere here, right here in the middle of nowhere, that's remote corner of the world in Gainesville, will become a holy place of pilgrimage. And it is already a holy place of pilgrimage because you are doing that. But the more you do that, then people will feel that just as soon as they come in the door, they'll feel that. Or take a bite of prasadam or whatever. You know, they'll come in the door, they'll feel the atmosphere surcharged with spiritual strength. And not only that, but as we develop our own personal habit of repeating transcendental sound vibration, and you know, repeating doesn't mean parrot-like repeating either. That's also beneficial, you know, memorize the verse or whatever. But also repeating it in our own way. Just this is what happened here. Repeating it with our own understanding. Thinking of another example aside from the electric light or the electricity example that was given in the purport, but another similar example that will convey the same meaning so that people can relate to the concepts and things that we're trying to explain. And they will benefit so much, and the atmosphere will continue to rise above the modes of material nature to become a whole, like a fortress of spiritual vibration. It'll become so strong. So that's the art, and that's our responsibility. Here, Maharaj Yudhisthira is glorifying and appreciating Vidura. He's asking him, where did you go? Where did you eat? How did you maintain yourself? But he's also saying, you are that very holy, you are also a holy place of pilgrimage, because wherever you go, you bring that spiritual atmosphere. And that's our contribution to the purity of Krishna house, or the purity of wherever we're residing, is to vibrate that transcendental sound vibration. Practice vibrating it, because you know the consciousness very naturally flows down to lower levels. So we got to keep bringing it up, keep bringing up our consciousness and by our words and by our vibration of transcendental sound vibration, to bring up the atmosphere for enthusiastic spiritual enlightenment. Comments, Jonathan, Prabhu.
I'd like to go back really quick to the eye exercise, but after that, the speaking exercise part about like saying prayers and even doing, you know, japa automatic. Well, so here's my thing. I've asked this question a couple of times. I've got some different answers, and yesterday I heard this small quote from Srila Prabhupada about doing japa, and that he said the sound itself is what, if you just listen to yourself chant, it distracts the mind. The same way if we're having a class in a dump truck, he used a motorcycle, but if one's really loud outside, all our attention is diverted to that sound. So he says that when we're chanting, all you have to do is just listen to the chanting, and then the mind will automatically go there. So, because then I've also been thinking, like what you said, yeah, okay, if I'm chanting, I want to have quality, you know, meditation. I'm thinking about Srila Prabhupada and Guru and Krishna and stuff, but the mind is just like so fickle, you know, it can be thinking about all kind of things. So, you know, if my mind's not in the right place, like, you know, for instance, this morning it's all over, but I can just hear the morning program or the nice Guru Puja, the Mridanga, and my chanting, even though my mind's not thinking about anything holy, you know, how does that work?
It works, but it works a little slower, okay? You know, so the transcendental, and this is what Krishna says, 6th chapter Bhagavad Gita, when he talks about the mind. What does he say about the mind? He says your mind is your best friend. But that's not the only thing he says about the mind. He says it's also your worst enemy. So you have to try to make your worst enemy your best friend by what? Bringing it back from wherever and whenever the mind wanders, bring it back. And that can get pretty exhausting, can it? Because like you said, it's not like goes to one thing and sticks there for 20 minutes and then goes to another thing and sticks there. No, it's like billion things a minute, right? This, that. So it's all the intense distractions of the mind are particularly due to the fact that here we are. One place in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada describes the residents of Kali Yuga, the burnt remnants of Kali Yuga. We're like hopeless cases. So it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a challenge. But what's the intention? Why are you? You have to go back and you have to think, why am I here? I'm here because I appreciate the philosophy. I want to become purified. I want to become conscious that I'm a servant of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada, oftentimes he would say, one time when he was asked by a reporter, how many pure devotees are in the movement? Prabhupada said, he turned to Tamal Krishna Maharaj and said, how many devotees are in the movement? Tamal said, 5,000. Prabhupada said, 5,000. Now, you and I know both, I'm not a pure devotee. But because Prabhupada has trained us up from the minute we've come in the door, that we're servants of Krishna, and that's the only way, by connecting with that service attitude towards Krishna is the only way for us to get out of the cycle of samsara and the only way to be ultimately happy, which is what we're all looking for. So connecting up with that thought pattern, that is our motivation. So that is our quote unquote qualification of pure devotee. That's the definition of a pure devotee. Yes, all the distractions are there. Yes, but we're sticking it out to the best of our ability, making our best attempt to bring the mind back. And sometimes, and I'm sure you've experienced this at different times, you chant your whole set of rounds and you didn't even think of Krishna once. And, you didn't even remember, oh yeah, I'm a servant of Krishna once. But that's the nature of the practice. We just have to keep practicing. So it will have its effect, and it will have its effect continue. The potency will be there, and it will shine more and more it will become more and more prominent in our consciousness the more that we hear. Not the more that we hear the holy name, but also hear the philosophy. And bring and have things that the mind can, that you can try to bring your mind to this point or that point or that point. So Srila Prabhupada once also described cleaning the heart is like trying to scrub a coal. It's made out of dirt, it's dirt. But we stick in the shower, we stick in the process, we stick with the devotees, and all of those things will help gradually. And another thing, Burijan Prabhu said, if you look forward all the time, the qualifications of a pure devotee, the qualifications of returning back to Godhead, no false ego, no lust, no anger, no greed, not even a pinch of any of those things. It seems, you can see that we have a long way to go, right? It can be also very discouraging. But so Burijan Prabhu, he would encourage not just looking forward, but also looking back. Look how much you've progressed since you've stepped in the door, or stepped up to the process of bhakti, So, but if you're just always looking back, then what? You're going to bump into the wall, You're not going to make enough progress. You're going to think, oh yeah, I made a lot of progress, therefore I'm here, But it's a question of forward looking and also appreciation. The mind usually has the negative tendency, bring you down. You're not good enough, you're not trying hard enough, you're not hearing enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough. But disregarding the negativity of the mind and making our positive attempt, that keeps us on track a little bit. We're over time. Is it not a problem? It's not a problem because Shruti Shara is not here, but it is a problem. Any other comments or questions that anyone would like to bring up or thoughts? Yes, we have a microphone. It's coming over, a special delivery.
Thank you for the class. I was thinking about a few verses back when we talked about how Vidura was insulted by Duryodhana.
Yeah.
He was called the son of a Shudrani. And when I heard like that part, I was a little, it struck me, and I was thinking like, why would he feel insulted? It seems like a bodily platform to think, oh, I'm a son of this caste, that's why feeling bad about it. Can you explain a little bit more about his mentality? Because I understand he didn't identify with the body and he was pure devotee.
Correct. He didn't identify with his body, but still at the same time, those words were meant to be an insult. You know, it's just like you could say, I can't think of an example of this fast, but you know, you could, oh, okay. You can say, can you shut the door, please? Or I could say, you stupid, you always leave the door open. Can you shut the door? You know what I mean? It's the same message, but there's a whole different intention and vibe that's there. They give those examples on how to talk so kids will listen and how to listen so kids will talk. It's an old book, but not that old. Anyway, so the message, so those, they pierced his heart. Yes, they pierced his heart, but they didn't stay in his heart. You know what I mean? It's not that he's like totally oblivious. I mean, even, what's the other example of Maharaj Jad Bharat, when he was speaking with Maharaj Rahugana? And Maharaj Rahugana at first insulted him. You're dead like a, you're like, I'm going to beat you. You know, are you dull like a horse? Or I can't remember the exact thing. He was criticizing him for carrying the palanquin in an irregular manner. And that although he was, Jad Bharat was perfectly self-realized soul, still the words hurt for a little bit. And there's a mention of that in the verses, the following verses, that yes, there was some disturbance created by the harsh words spoken by Maharaj Rahugana, but Jad Bharat controlled his mind and fixed it on the pure self and overcame the botheration very quickly. That's the thing. It's not that we become, yes, it's not that we become, you know, oblivious to all circumstances and don't have any feelings, but one can bring the proper understanding very quickly into the forefront of the mind. Prabhu, Advaita. Thanks.
Thank you very much. A wonderful class. Also, if I may add, he was also his
Is
uncle.
your mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
He was also his uncle.
Yeah.
So it was hurtful to hear from a nephew.
Yeah.
You know, words like that.
Yeah.
It's personal.
Yeah.
So it was hurt. What I'm wondering is, as an uncle, how is that? Because we can choose, you know, fight, flight, or freeze. Of course, he has decided to flight, to take a pilgrimage every 6 years. But how is it? Wouldn't be a greater act of compassion to, you know, pull the other aside and say, "Hey, you schmuck, you're out of line," which he did to his father later on. So I guess besides that, it was Krishna's desire to have the war, because if he did that actually as an uncle, put him in place, maybe there wouldn't be in the war.
Yes. The giving of good advice to Duryodhana is like beating your head on the wall. You know, he gave Duryodhana millions of opportunities of good advice. You schmuck, can you not try to kill them? You this, can you just try to get it together? You know, so many ways, you know, in our language. He gave him that opportunity. And this last time was like, okay, forget it. You crossed the line, you know. I realize that it's not working. We need another program. I try to encourage you. Gee, hot trays on plastic tables, but you guys know what you're doing. I've given you so much good advice in the past, and it didn't really sink in. So, you know, now I'm going to try to do something else. I'll go away, giving you the hard. Okay, good point.